I'm sure we all know the saying, if you want to make God laugh, show him your plans. And this one always does make me laugh because that's exactly what happens. No matter how much we want to take control of our routines or what is happening in our life, life just happens and plans do get derailed. It's just inevitable. And it took me a long time to realize that just because a plan doesn't go as planned, it doesn't always mean that we should throw our hands up and let the rest go. And sometimes it does, but most of the time, it just means that we simply need to adjust. So, when it comes to meal planning, life often throws us curveballs. Either the chicken isn't fully thawed, company stops by, we randomly decide to go out on a date instead of making dinner at home, or friends call with an invitation to come over to their place for dinner. A lot of things can throw our meal planning routine off course. So, today I want to talk about how we can stay flexible with our meal planning routine when things do not go as planned. Are you ready to stop the chaos, the stress, the overwhelm that's filling your life? I'm Renee Matt, and together you and I are going to build simple routines that are going to change your life. When you put these habits into practice, you're going to be able to organize your life in a way where you can be there for your family, pay off your debt, save money, your house can stay organized, you don't have to stress about what's for dinner, and you still get time for yourself. So without further ado, let's get started. Welcome to the Routine Advantage Podcast. So, today we're talking about how to stay flexible with your meal planning routine, even when your week isn't going as you planned. Because more often than not, you might find that your plan doesn't go as you planned it. So, we need to figure out how to stay flexible even when life happens, because life is going to keep happening. We can't create a routine that is executed perfectly every day. And that's okay. What is the important thing is making sure that you have built the routine and you have a plan so that you can follow it and it gives you the framework. So just because things change or you need to adjust things on the fly or as you go, that doesn't mean that your routine or your plan is ruined. It just means that you just need to do a little bit of tweaking and you can keep going. And that is how you're going to make progress and build the consistency over time because you're not focusing on it being perfect. You're building the framework. You are following the framework and then you are tweaking and adjusting as needed as you go. And that is when you're going to find that you really have success with any routine in your life, especially with meal planning, because I feel like meal planning is one of the biggest ones that really kind of can get derailed most often. That and a budget routine. Budget routines are kind of hard if you aren't following your budget, but meal planning especially, this one can kind of take the cake here and no pun intended. Um, but anyway, we're gonna go into some of the tips that I have for you today, and most of these are actually tips that you'll find begin in the initial planning process of building your meal plan. And it's not just being flexible on the fly as you go, but it's actually building your meal plan with some intentionality so that it makes it easier to adjust it on the fly as you have changes come up in your life. So, number one, don't plan a different meal for all 7 days. So, this one is big. When you start meal planning, a lot of people have a tendency to go through their meal list and they have their favorites list and they pick a different meal for every day of the week. And you've got all 7 days planned out, and then something comes up on Tuesday night. And then so you shift that or you maybe skip that meal and now you've got extra ingredients and then you go to another night and all of a sudden it's like, okay, now we're going out for that night or we have company coming in and things are changing. We're ordering pizza now instead and now we've got two meals. And it's all these different ingredients. Things are left over, things are rotting in the fridge because we didn't get to use them up and it's just kind of a mess and we feel bad about all these changes that are being made. But when we can plan for a fridge sweep day and maybe even a leftovers day, then that is going to change the game for you in this case because we're not planning out all 7 days with different meals. We're building in some kind of gaps where we have a little bit more flexibility right off the bat. So, for instance, a leftovers day is just what it sounds like. It is basically that you can take any leftovers that you have either from the night before, maybe it's even 2 days before, and you've got leftovers from that meal, and either you reheat it as is and you just have the same exact meal, or maybe you have the ingredients and you build a new meal with the leftover ingredients. So maybe you've got leftover chicken and some black beans and corn and some tomatoes left over from a burrito bowl that you had 2 nights ago. But then tonight, you are going to take those leftovers and you are going to build them into a big, like salad. Maybe it's like a Southwest salad that you are putting those into and you're, crushing some tortilla chips on top and you're making this big Southwest salad out of ingredients and leftovers from a different meal. So that is what a leftovers meal would be as you're planning that in. So it's good to kind of think about where you're placing that in the week so that you can have leftovers from some of the previous meals that you know will make good leftovers. Another option is the fridge sweep day that I mentioned, and this is where you take. Usually, I do a fridge sweep day towards the end of the week because it allows you to take a meal and build whatever you want out of leftover ingredients. So it might already be pre-cooked like the leftovers, but it might just be something that needs to be used up. So it could be something that's not prepared at all, but it allows you to open up your fridge, open up your pantry, open up your freezer and see like what needs to be used up that I can make a meal out of and then you build a meal using those ingredients. And that's your fridge sweep. It's kind of that last ditch effort to try and use up the ingredients so things aren't wasted before you go into your next week of grocery shopping and filling the fridge again. So, those are what I would recommend as you're planning. Always plan for one fridge sweep day and maybe even a leftovers day. Or you can do it how you want. Some people I know like to do two fridge sweep days and two leftover days. So they only have to cook a couple of times and then they're good to go. And if that's you, then great. Like that's what works for you. But that's just an option. I would just recommend not planning a different meal for all 7 days. Number two is to plan at least one frozen or pantry stable meal each week. And what I mean by this is being able to have one full meal that is freezer or shelf stable is great because then it allows more of that flexibility when things are happening and we need to skip a meal at home and we no longer need to cook or we need to change some things. It allows us to keep those things in our freezer or in our pantry and just roll it over into the next week. So something like this might look like having, frozen chicken or fish or anything like that in the freezer and have that be something that we can keep in the freezer and then have some, frozen mixed vegetables or frozen green beans, or maybe it's canned green beans or some rice in the pantry, things like that, that you can build a meal very easily with some sort of protein, veggie, and carb and that is going to last because if something happens and we need to keep that, it's not going to go bad by the time the next week rolls around. We can just push it off into the next week, and that will create more of the flexibility as we are planning and things are changing. And along with that is number three, which is try planning for your fresh first and frozen later. So, as you're planning out your meal plan, I would recommend looking at all of the ingredients that you are going to have. And if you have a meal that has this, frozen chicken and frozen veggies and rice, don't plan that right away in the beginning of your week. Plan for that to be towards the end of the week because you don't have to worry about those ingredients going bad. So, when you are looking at your meal plan, try using all of the fresher ingredients earlier in the week and keep the freezer and shelf stable items towards the end of the week because then as something or as you go through your week, if something comes up and you need to either skip a meal or shift things and push them off those meals later on in the week are still going to be okay. You're not going to have things rotting in your fridge because you didn't get a chance to use it because too many things happened and your plans got derailed. So this one has been huge for me to be able to adjust things and not have so much waste. So that is a really great one to keep in mind is fresh first, frozen later. And then number 4 is to try to keep your meals simple and use similar ingredients in that week. So maybe you want a lot of Italian or you want a lot of Mexican food or you want a lot of um like Chinese food or you have different tastes and flavors and you've got Mediterranean food, things like that. But instead of trying to cram all of those different things into the same week and having this giant grocery list of different ingredients, and then all of a sudden plans are changing and we can't use up all these ingredients and so much is going to waste. Try having a different theme each week or just similar ingredients. It doesn't even have to be themed, but just similar ingredients so that you can still use these ingredients in other meals. And even if something changes, you don't have to just scrap everything and you're not wasting so much. So, for example, if you're doing Mexican dishes that week, like tacos, you can do a taco salad, you can do enchiladas, you can do burrito bowls, and everything is kind of the same. You can do similar ingredients there because you've got your ground turkey, you've got chicken, you've got rice, you've got peppers and onions and tomatoes. These are all very usable ingredients for other dishes. So you can have tacos and salads and those burrito bowls, but you could also do just chicken and mixed veggies and rice in a completely different realm. Like I don't know what that would be considered. I mean, it's just basic foods. So it wouldn't be a Mexican dish, but it would just be basic foods that you can still use these same ingredients for. So if you are trying to build something like that, try using similar ingredients because your grocery list will be shorter. And a lot of these are really great to use in multiple things. So you could, if you have a lot of leftovers in, we actually just did this. I'm kind of getting sidetracked here, but we just did this where I needed to use up a lot of, tomatoes and onions, and we needed to use it on several different dishes, and they were gonna go bad because it was towards the end. I think we were on week 2, and they were still good, but they were going to go. So I just chopped them all up, and I made, like, a fresh pico de gallo so that we could put it on, some tacos, and then later this week, we are going to have these, like, low-carb enchiladas, and so that is going to be a topping for that where we were able to use up all of these different ingredients and we were just using these same tomatoes in salads and it just has and wraps actually and it has worked really well because we're using similar ingredients but we're using them in a variety of ways and so then we can buy less, we can buy more of less items and we can utilize them in other meals if we need to skip a meal. So it allows for a lot of flexibility in being able to make some changes throughout the week without feeling guilty about making those changes. And lastly, we have number 5, which is when plans change, review your meal plan and simply make adjustments as needed. This is your permission that you can make changes. Just because things are not going as planned does not mean it has failed. It just means you need to tweak it. So if something happens and you need to skip a night of making meals and you no longer have to make that meal and you've got all the ingredients for it, think about how you could adjust your week to make it make sense so that you aren't going through a lot of waste and it's making it easier for you in the long run. So, there are several different things that you can look at while you're looking at this. So, you could look at, does your meal that is in the freezer that we were just talking about, having that freezer and pantry stable meal, does that need to just roll into next week's plan? And that's okay. Just cross that off, shift things around to make sure that that one can be in next week's plan. Should you make that meal and continue making it, maybe make it the next day? Should you shift it and move it to a lunchtime meal instead? Maybe it is something where you can make the meal and it's a really good freezable meal. So maybe make the meal like the next day or two and make it, but then put it in the freezer. Is it a casserole or a chili or a soup or something like that that could easily be frozen? And then you have a really quick go to meal later on one of those, leftover or fridge sweep days where you need a quick meal and you don't have fridge sweep ingredients. You can just pull that out and you've got a ready to go meal or for a busy weeknight. So that is a really great option to be able to just shift it that way and make something that you can just actually just throw in the freezer for later. Another thing to consider is, can you make it for a friend instead? Like, do you have any mom friends that are just, postpartum and they need a quick meal? Do you have a friend that is going through some sort of illness or just stressed out and they could use a nice homemade meal? Maybe make it for them so it doesn't go to waste and bring it over to them. So then you've got it going to something that you feel good even though your plans were changed, you can still give it to somebody else. So there are a lot of different things you can do here. So if your plans get derailed, just take a look at your meal plan and make the adjustments as needed. Don't stress yourself out. This should not be stressful. We want our meal plan to be able to be flexible. And when I am focused on creating my meal plan, this is not in my list of tips, but I will just mention it because it does help me a lot. This is one of the great reasons why I like only planning out, the dinners and making sure I have a fridge sweep day in there, and then also only taking, like, 1 or maybe 1 to 3, but usually it's 1 or 2 different breakfast ideas and 1 to 2 different lunch ideas, and using those because that is making sure that we're not over planning for the week. If I plan a different breakfast, lunch, dinner for every day of the week, it is way too much. And then when things change or we're not hungry for the same things and we need to shift things around because there's no way that we can eat everything that we had planned out, we end up with so much wasted food because we just over planned. And so when I keep it really, really simple and focus on these tips to make it flexible, we are able to adjust on the fly with no problems. And it's easy and way less food goes to waste. So I would encourage you to focus on keeping your meal plan super simple, and it's going to make it even easier to keep it flexible. So I hope that this encourages you that if things go off the rails with your meal plan, it doesn't mean you're doing anything wrong. It just means you're living life and that is normal. What you need to focus on is being able to know how to look at that when that happens and make adjustments to make it continue working for you the rest of the week. So I hope that these were helpful for you. I will recap that, but I just want to really quickly just mention that if you need help building your initial meal planning method, go back to episode 36, and that will help you to go through the meal planning method to build quick and healthy weekly menus for your family. And that will be a great start for you. That we do have an earlier episode. I think it might be episode 8-ish, maybe. That is the original meal planning episode, but this one might be a little bit more helpful for you. But you can take a look and see what works for you. You can scroll through. We have tons of meal planning episodes, so hopefully that this will help you to get started and kind of think about the flexibility of your meal plan as you are going through. If your life kind of just keeps getting derailed, it's okay. We are all in it together, and we can keep making progress and make our meal plans easier and easier as we go through. So, the quick recap of how to stay flexible with your meal planning when your week does not go as planned is number one, don't plan a different meal for all 7 days. Make sure you're adding in one of those fridge sweep or leftover days or both. Number two, plan at least one frozen and pantry stable meal each week. And preferably put it towards the end of the week because that will save you from all those fresh ingredients going bad if something happens during the week. Number three is plan fresh first, frozen later. So, this is pretty much any ingredients, but when you are planning out your meals, if you have anything that is using frozen or shelf stable ingredients, try planning those for later in the week so that they're easier to adjust if things need to change, or you can roll those into the next week without your ingredients going bad. So, use more of your fresher ingredients earlier in the week and you will have less waste. All right, number 4 is try to keep your meals simple and use similar ingredients for each week. So you can still have a variety and switch it up each week if you want to, or you can keep it super basic and have rotating similar ingredients and have similar meals. That's okay too. If you're okay with that, go ahead and do that. Keep it super simple, but keeping your list of ingredients down to a minimum each week is going to help reduce the waste and allow more flexibility in your cooking routine because then you're going to be able to use similar ingredients in a variety of ways. And lastly, number 5 is when plans change, it's okay. Simply review your meal plan and just make adjustments as needed because life is happening and that's okay. We need to just know how to adjust. So I hope that you found this super helpful, and I will catch you back here on the next episode. Did you love that episode or learn something useful? If so, would you do me a huge favor? My goal is to grow this podcast and help as many women as I can break free from the overwhelm so they can truly enjoy their life. The best way for me to do this is for you to leave a 5-star written review on your podcast app and to share this episode with a friend or in your Instagram stories. I appreciate you being here. I hope you have a wonderful day, and I will see you on the next episode. Take care.